where we kick ass, we take names, we lock horns with the radical left. We never quit. We never surrender. From sea to shining sea and everybody in between, welcome, patriots, on this glorious Tuesday. And yes, the week is rolling on. It's awesome to be here. It's awesome to have you. Welcome to the show. You know, folks, today has been one of those days. I'll get into all that here in a second, but while I'm doing the intro to the show here and talking about all this stuff that's on top of mind, make sure you smash that like button, that little green thumb beneath the video. It helps the show immensely. Don't forget about doing that. I try to remind you all a couple of times throughout the show, but it's just so important. It helps us make the leaderboard. And I mean, we basically made it every single day. We're in the 40s. I think the highest I've ever gotten was 32. But again, that's because of you. So thank you all for that. I'm just seeing coming across the wires here. I'm almost speechless because this shit is just, it's insane to me. And it just makes me so mad. And our leaders on both sides of the aisle they don't seem to get it. And so the US and G7 are giving Ukraine a $50 billion loan. And the only reason they're calling it a loan and the only reason they're throwing the G7 in there at all is to soften the blowback to the US taxpayers, because we know that the lion's share of this money is going to come from us. And it's maddening to me because the Biden administration seems to be doing everything that they can to go all in on all of these insane policy priorities that risk setting the world on fire just prior to Trump coming back in office. $50 billion. We've already given Ukraine probably $200 billion of our money over the last, over 3 years, and now 50 billion more as Biden and his ilk and his staff are on the way out of the White House. Have we learned nothing from the multiple quagmires that our country has been involved in just my lifetime? Freaking scream this from the rooftops all the time. And Battle Crew, you'll have to forgive me because I feel like I'm about to do it again. But as someone who has fought in these wars that both Republicans and Democrats sent me to on behalf of a grateful nation, and you know the drill on this. If America were ever threatened, I'd be first in line volunteering to send my ass to the front lines of that fight. I think you know enough about me by now to know that much is true. But my God, Iraq, Afghanistan, now Ukraine, trillions of dollars spent, of our taxpayer dollars spent in support of these ridiculous wars. What do we have to show for it? I mean that. Thousands dead, tens of thousands wounded, hundreds of thousands with the invisible wounds of war. Million Afghan dead, a million Iraqis dead, probably close to damn near a million Ukrainians dead now, 600,000 Russians dead. What the freaking hell are we doing? Immediately rushing into war is not leadership. Casting America's sons and daughters into the fire is not leadership. I mean, obviously, America, listen, we've got to have the biggest, baddest military on the block. Walk softly, but carry a big stick. Of course, we should invest in our military. Of course, if a war is righteous and our freedom is threatened, we should not want a fair fight. In fact, the objective of the United States military is simply to get on the objective and kick boots. That's it. We don't want a fair fight. We want to be the baddest ass force on the planet, but it doesn't mean that we should use the force frivolously and dump billions of dollars. I mean, $50 billion. This is a loan, but it's going to be forgiven. And this is the game that these warmongers play all the time. And I'm just sick of it because this is not what President Trump ran on. Trump ran on something that is unprecedented in American history, or at least in my lifetime. Maybe it's a stretch to say American history. But Trump ran on getting us out of wars. Trump ran on ending the military industrial complex and this big self-licking ice cream cone of corruption within the Pentagon and defense contractors, Pentagon defense contractors, General at the Pentagon says, sure, we'll give Raytheon this $1 billion contract through acquisitions. And oh, by the way, that same general is going to get $1 million board position the moment that he retires. This is the game that's played. And oftentimes it's America's sons and daughters who pay the price for the irresponsible behavior. And this is just what I'm coming off the top rope in the show, really clearly frustrated. And again, it's been a day. I'll fill you in on that. But the resistance to Pete Hegseth, and not just him, but at first President Trump and now all of his cabinet picks, you go back over the last 20 years. I mean, really take a minute to do some research. Go back over the last 20 years and find, the nominees that weren't confirmed. I bet you could find them. Maybe there's probably hardly any, Democrat or Republican. But the media is really in the midst of something very sinister right now. And I think in many ways, Republicans might be playing along with it a little bit. And I'm not talking about the folks on this show, maybe inside the Beltway Republicans and certainly influencer Republicans are just debating back and forth about whether or not somebody should be confirmed or not, or if they're qualified or not. I mean, to me, that's playing the media's game. One of the reasons why President Trump was elected was because he went on podcasts and shattered the traditional media approach to running for office. Well, why have we fallen back right into that same model with cabinet confirmations? If you're a Republican in the House or the Senate or an advisor or a staff member, I know that you listen to the show. Don't give these traditional media outlets, these corporate media outlets, the fake news, the power to knock off cabinet appointments. Don't give them that power. It's all fake, fabricated bullshit. And again, go back over the last 20 years, maybe longer. Find nominees that were shot down, torpedoed by the other party. There probably aren't that many. In fact, I know there aren't that many because a president, Democrat or Republican, is entitled to their cabinet. And look, say what you want about John Fetterman, okay? Listen, I don't agree with him at all. I think much of what he's talking about today, I'm talking specifically with regards to his trend to the right. I don't believe it. You have to compare what he says to his voting record. His voting record is still radical and crazy left. But he said something on The View the other day, and that was, listen, our party has to understand, talking about the Democrat Party, our party has to understand that when we lose in the way that we did in the House, the Senate, and the White House, the president is allowed to appoint the cabinet that as he sees fit. He's entitled to that. And for God's sake, no one is saying this, or at least not, maybe there's one or two. If they're out there, tag me on X, let me know. But the role of the United States Senate is to advise and consent. Advice and consent. That's their constitutional obligation to this process. Nowhere in that constitutional obligation is obstruction. And so it's just insane to me that the only thing standing in the way of Trump's mandate are Republican senators right now. It drives me crazy. And in many ways, look, like Pete seems to have turned a corner. I mean, I believe that. I think the next phase is to put a face with the accusations. That's what the Democrats do. They find somebody who is easily manipulated, who maybe needs the cash, maybe wants to be a little famous. They drag them out, put a face with the accusations, and they can't just be shrugged off as anonymous. And then you have someone, whoever the target is, has to respond directly to them to refute them. And then it becomes a back and forth. Then it becomes a he said, she said. And all of a sudden, you're not focused on Senate confirmation and making the argument to senators. You're focused on a back and forth with somebody who's falsely accused you of something. So I don't know if something like that's going to happen, but it very easily could. So I had a conversation with Don Jr. today. I want to tell you a little bit about it here in a second, but let me take a quick break. I'm fast. I know I did 20 minutes in the show. They tell you you're not supposed to do 20 straight minutes. And Sister Mary McGroin, Sean, that blowhard Fetterman can say blah blah blah. Let's see how the senator votes. Sister Mary McGroin, I couldn't agree with you more. Never listen to what Democrats say. Just watch how they vote. You're absolutely right. But he was right in saying that on The View. Whether or not it was sincere is another thing. But he was right. Presidents are entitled to their cabinets, and Democrats should vote for the cabinet members that are put before them. Okay. Let me tell you about Sweetamine. Smash that like button, by the way. If you're suffering from chronic pain, folks, you know the drill. I highly recommend Sweetamine. It works because it's composed of an amino acid called glycine. That's the nutrient our immune system uses to regulate inflammation. Most of the diseases that make people sick and die these days, they're rooted in chronic inflammation due to a glycine deficiency. All the aches and pains that we feel as we get older are also, because of chronic inflammation, also due to a glycine deficiency. Once daily serving of Sweetamine provides 8 grams of glycine, and that's enough to stop all excess inflammation right where it starts. With once daily Sweetamine, most people feel the reduction in pain after just a couple of days. It took me about a week, and I just got a 6-month supply of it in, and I just started taking it again, and thank God it couldn't come soon enough, because man, I feel it in all of my joints when I don't take it. I highly recommend this stuff. Sweetamine is also great for recovery after workouts. A 12-day challenge trial pack of Sweetamine is only $19.95 with free shipping, and it's sold completely risk-free. So if you don't like it, you can ask for your money back. No questions asked. Use it just like sugar, favorite beverage, in a protein shake, in a smoothie. Take it any way you want. All natural Sweetamine contains no sugar, no carbs, only has 24 calories. It's perfectly safe for diabetics. So you can get Sweetamine online at sweetamine.com or call 855-GET-SWEET. That's 855-438-7933. Again, that's sweetamine.com, 855-GET-SWEET, or 855-438-7933. Enter the code Sean, my name, SEAN, and on your first purchase, you'll get a $5 discount. Yeah, folks, I absolutely love Sweetamine. The only thing you have to lose is your pain. So let me tell you also about My Patriot Supply, another great sponsor of the show. We're all feeling pretty good about where our country is headed now, but I am concerned, because it's when we let our guard down that bad things happen. That's why I'm always prepared for emergencies, no matter how good or comfortable life gets. In fact, if you're good and you're comfortable and on firm footing, that's precisely when you should be preparing for disasters. The only brand that I rely on for my security and my safety and that of my families in an emergency is My Patriot Supply. Whether that be their emergency food kits, solar power generators, their water treatment systems, they're the best in the business, full stop. And right now, you can get their 4-week emergency food kit for $50 off. Their 4-week emergency food kit includes some of my favorite meals like creamy Alfredo pasta and addicting snacks like banana chips. With warehouses located across America, My Patriot Supply can send your 4-week emergency food kit in as little as 1 day. So how do you do it? You just go to preparewithvnn.com, get your 4-week emergency food kit now, but don't wait, because emergencies can happen at any time. That is preparewithvnn.com. Get your 4-week emergency food kit right now. Okay, so I had a conversation with Don Jr. today. I'm going to tell you about that conversation here in just a second. But today kind of went off the rails off on this Ukraine loan. And yeah, I apologize for that. I just see that stuff and it absolutely drives me insane. But today was one of those days around here at Fort Parnell. I went on to talk to Don Jr. today, and then I went on the Drinking Bros podcast. I've never been on it before, but it's a rated R podcast. Military veterans, like combat veterans, military veterans, go on that show. It was cool to go on it and talk about Pete Hegseth and stuff. But these interviews that I did today, a couple of them were over an hour, which is kind of crazy. So that's like tough on the voice. But today was one of those days, people. I have been talking about now, you guys probably, I promise you I'll get back to the conversation with Don Jr. soon, but I've been talking about getting an ice maker for a very, very long time. Very long time. We don't have an ice maker in my house. We don't. It's kind of sucks because you got to go out and buy ice. Believe me when I tell you that sucks. It's been that way for a couple years. The ice maker that we do have is broken. Tried lots of solutions. It's like one of those under cabinet ice makers. Like we bought it from the owners of the house. We bought the house. It's been like that since we moved in, is the point. We love the people who we bought the house from. And we finally got a new one. And I have been talking to my wife, to Commander Melanie. I mean, it feels like every day about how excited I am to actually have an ice maker again. And I'm like, this is going to be amazing. I'm never going to have to buy another bag of ice again. We finally saved up enough money to go buy an ice maker, because let me tell you, those under the cabinet ice makers, they ain't cheap. Do you ever know, those things aren't cheap. It's kind of ridiculous. So we save up enough money to get one of these things. And the thing is supposed to come today to be installed before the holidays. And I wake up, I'm like super excited. It's supposed to happen at 10:30 in the morning. And I had to run out, run a couple of errands this morning, and I came back and this sucker was supposed to be in. I was really excited for it. And I come back and I said to Commander Melanie, I said, so the ice maker go in? Are we good to go? She goes, no, it didn't get put in. There's some bullshit plumbing problem or whatever. Oh my God. Might sound stupid. And as I talk it through, indeed it does. As I get these thoughts out of my mind. Yeah, it does kind of sound a little bit stupid, but I really wanted to have an ice maker. I was very excited about it. So now I got this ice maker that we saved up for in my freaking garage. And we have to call somebody else to install it. And by the way, I don't know what the hell the problem was. I think these guys just didn't want to do it. So a little fired up about that. I had this conversation with Don Jr., get to the stuff that you really care about. But this day was just crazy. Meetings, interviews. And by the way, shout out to Brock, who helped me cobble together a show today. I could not have done the show today without him, because I did not anticipate these meetings that I was in today going as long as they did. And I kind of, once you get in them, you're kind of stuck. And so he helped flag some stuff for me, and I'm very grateful that he did. But talked to Don today for a while, and I don't want to get into the in depth of what we talked about, but he said something that really jumped out at me, because we were talking about what the deep state was doing to Pete. I mean, that was the context of all of it. Because I worked with Pete during the time supposedly when all this bullshit happened at Concerned Vets for America. I was the senior advisor for the organization, as you all know. So I was having a conversation with Don about that. And we got to a conversation that he had with President-elect Trump about the Russia collusion hoax. Do you remember that, when Don had to go testify for hours and hours and hours, and Adam Schiff was going out there on television saying that Donald Trump Jr. was a Russian asset and had worked with Russia, and they were going to throw him in jail for the rest of his life? We've been to a couple of Trump rallies, Commander Mellie and I, where President Trump is clearly affected by this, about the treatment of his son. And he mentions it from the stage, and you can tell it almost gets him emotional. He's like, you're a father, your job is to protect your son. And you have these Democrats in Congress talking about throwing him in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. Take a moment and really think about that. You're the president of the United States. You were elected to do the will of the people. And something else that we talked about today was that how, when President Trump got in office, the first time he had ever spent any time or stayed overnight in Washington was his first day as president-elect, which sounds insane as a global businessman like Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is not a politician. He's run his own business. He's been, completely laser focused on that his entire career, and he built an empire doing that. But Don told me today how he wanted to get to Washington, work with everybody, Democrats and Republicans, to make America great again. That's honestly what he believed. And I heard Don tell me that. So he just went to work hiring all these people. And President Trump was very affected by, as any father would be, by the treatment of Don. I mean, guy testified and be subpoenaed like over 12 times, testified for hours and hours and hours and hours. And we were talking about this, and Don told me about a conversation with his dad, with President-elect Trump. And President-elect Trump was saying, I hate this. I feel terrible. This is terrible what they're doing to you. You know, what can I do to help? And when it was all over, Don told me that he said, hey, Dad, don't be upset for me. You know, I am grateful for the experience. And he's like, because that experience made me stronger. And I thought, like, this is, sorry, I'm losing my voice here. I said, this is the son of the most powerful man on earth, and Donald Trump, and also the most famous guy on the planet. There's no question about that. Now, the 47th president of the United States. Just consider that. Just how ridiculous, you know, that I live on a farm in Western Pennsylvania and I'm going to have a conversation with the president of the United States' son. It's pretty damn amazing. But he was talking just with humility about, hey, this experience made me stronger, Dad. You don't need to do anything. Doesn't that speak volumes about the character of the Trumps? Most powerful man on the planet, having a candid conversation with his son. Clearly he's hurting. And Don Jr. saying, no, this made me stronger. And then it got to thinking about like some of the things the Dems have done to me in my own life. And I think the same thing. And here's the interesting thing. When the Dems do shit like this, whether it's